Hey, y'all need a break. Listen to these stories from r/AskReddit. What ruined religion for you? Being raised in a Mormon, Latter-day Saints, church and forced to attend every boring meeting and gathering for 18 years. Even as a young teenager, I somehow saw through the coercion tactics. Giving me assignments because God wanted me to do it, when really it was the old white men that saw I didn't want to be there and thought giving me an assignment would help. Or, at testimony meetings, every month, you're supposed to speak from your heart about your belief to the congregation. Toddlers would be forced to go up and their mothers would whisper in their ear what to say and they would repeat it. I thought this was insane because obviously they're not speaking their own words. I could go on. So many things, but the final straw for me was my church asking a homeless man to leave and not come back. He would sit and listen to the sermons, never bothered anyone, and always sat in the very back. I confronted my youth group leader and she defended the preacher. I hear stuff like this all the time and it's so infuriating, like what the F? Doesn't the Bible, doesn't your God, teach you to be kind and loving and selfless, to love people no matter what? I've only ever met one church leader/pastor/whatever in my entire life who lived by those teachings. I met him when I had already separated from religion, but he was truly a man of God, if there ever was one. He was what Christianity should look like. He loved everyone, every single person, equally and unequivocally. His church was always open to everyone from all walks of life. He fed anyone who was hungry. Would literally give you the clothes off his back if you needed them. Offered wisdom and guidance and counseling services. Never tried to push religion on you, just made you feel loved and accepted no matter what. His church was a haven to the homeless. He ran breakfasts every Saturday, cooked huge meals all the time, had gatherings on holidays, and let the homeless use the church for recreation, shelter, food, water, amenities. I don't think I'd have such of an issue with Christianity as a practice if more Christians were like him. When I was sexually assaulted by another boy and I spoke to my pastor because I was afraid to tell my family. He asked me what I did to make the other kid have impure thoughts and tried to make it out to be my fault. That was the exact moment I lost what little faith I had to begin with. This 13-year-old kid got exposed for being gay and was bullied into suicide by his family for it. I remember during summers they would send him to a special camp to cure his gayness. I was really good friends with his little sister and she would always say how embarrassing it was to have a gay brother and would hope he would become straight. He ended up hanging himself at 13 or 14. It happened in middle school and I can't pretend like I was friends with him, but his story always stuck with me. What did the family think? They said even though he struggled with homosexuality, he would still be in heaven because he was different from other gay people. They ended up putting the other siblings in homeschool after that and we didn't really hear about them anymore. At the hospital with my family sitting around my terminally ill aunt, a reverend was called in to say a prayer and do whatever the pre-death ritual was. The man arrived and waited outside the room a bit, not coming in. My cousin and I made eye contact with him and my cousin asked if he would come in. The man made an odd face and then rubbed his fingers together making the money gesture. Whatever little bit of faith I still had, whooshed away at that moment. Well, being from Northern Ireland I have more than the average number of reasons. I guess it's a toss-up between learning that the clergy on both sides had been diddling kids, including selling access to them to rich pedophiles. Learning that the Catholic Church ran women's homes where they kidnapped babies, sold the ones that didn't die and used their mothers as forced labor. Or the classic, that we had a civil war that was largely delineated on religious lines, so people spent 40 years telling their children that, the other half, were basically scary aliens that meant us harm. Oh yeah, and I like dinosaurs and the church people kept telling me they weren't real, so F that. I love the fact that along with all of the horrible troubles that NI has to deal with, the nail in the coffin for you was the dinos. A couple of friends of mine invited me to a summer camp when I was in middle school. The first warning sign I noticed was the packing list included a Bible, but I brushed it off because the camp brochure had horseback riding, water slides, and a bunch of stuff that seemed cool. And then I get there. And one of the first things we had to do was line up and deposit our money in a camp account. Why? So during our twice daily church services we could write donation slips that would take money out of our account and give to the camp. You get the idea. It was full on, 100%, a super conservative religious Christian summer camp that just happened to have fun stuff in between the ridiculous religious nonsense. Fun stuff like bands coming in to sing religious smash hits like, My Daddy Ain't a Monkey. No. I'm not lying. That was the name of the song. Thank God I was there with another guy who my friends convinced to attend camp with us. I eventually confronted them about their lie and they admitted that had done it because they knew I wasn't a believer and did it to save me. I told them that I didn't care what their reasons were. If they were my friends they wouldn't have lied. And if they believed so strongly about it, would they really lie, etc. Left camp bewildered and more than a little betrayed. As the years went on and I continued to see the complete lack of integrity and regard for honesty amongst religious people, I was still disappointed, but not surprised. Seeing a whole congregation of people perform an exorcism on a 5-year-old boy. I was a teen youth leader at a Southern Baptist church I had been involved with for several years. During Sunday morning service one day, one of the deacons came from the children's church building next door and interrupted the preacher to whisper something in his ear. They both left immediately, and when they returned, were dragging a 4 or 5-year-old boy down the aisle who was screaming like a banshee. They ended up taking him in front of the church, holding him down, and reciting all sorts of bullcrap about demonic possession, asking the churchgoers to come up to him and help banish the demon from the child. Kinda ruined God for me. The worst part about this is that they never suspect the child to be autistic. I wouldn't doubt that he was autistic. But really, what I attributed it to more than anything was that the child was growing up in a single-parent home with a mother who was recovering from drug addiction, and she struggled a lot with raising her 2 kids. They both acted out a lot. The child wasn't possessed. He just needed love. How agonizingly long and tedious Mass was as a Roman Catholic kid. Stand up, sing. Sit down. Then kneel. Then stand again. Sing again. Sit down. Stand up. Kneel and pray. Then 30 minutes of droning from the robed guy at the front. Then stand up and sing. Sit down. Stand up. WTF, please make this end. When I was 12, my father pulled me aside and said, "Son, you are old enough to decide about religion. I wanted to give you a chance to experience religion. If you want to keep going to church, you can, but it's also okay if you don't want to go anymore." I said, "Okay, I don't want to go anymore." My father said, "Okay, me too." And that was that. Really toxic people at my church growing up. Seeing people only go to church to make connections and gossip rather than actually worship and do good for others. I was like 15 and playing an instrument in the worship band for the most popular youth group in the area, which is a very Christian area. At one point the pastor dude was praying and the musicians were behind him waiting to play when he was done. The whole room, 200 plus people, had their heads bowed as dude was praying. Then his prayer went into the whole, "Here's what you pray if you want to become a Christian right now, yada yada yada." Then at the end he says, "Okay, everyone keep your heads bowed, eyes closed. Now if you just prayed that prayer with me, I want you to look up. Everyone else keep your heads bowed, but if you just now gave your life to Jesus, look up at me or raise your hand so I can see you." I'm behind him, and facing the crowd who have their eyes closed, so I decide it's safe to take a peek. I discreetly look up and notice that exactly 0 people in the crowd are looking up at him. Every single person still has their head bowed, eyes closed. Which is fine, I mean maybe they were all already Christians. However, as I'm looking at nobody responding, Mr. Pastor starts saying, "Okay, I see you there. Oh, I see another over there. Amen. And you back there. Praise God. Yes, I see you over there. Amen. Come find me afterwards." It was perplexing to see him lie to so many people like that. And this wasn't some nobody youth pastor, he was like quite legit, having written books and being mentioned in national articles and stuff. TLDR, an acclaimed youth pastor tried to make it seem like his prayer had converted several people, when I could clearly see it had not. Seeing how people use religion as an excuse to be crappy people around the world. So many people just bend their interpretation of a religion to fit whatever they want. If I have to boil my experience down to a simple concept, it's this. There's much more nuance, but overall you're using a book that will give you a passage to justify whatever you want to do. Religious leaders ruined religion for me. I never met a single priest who could tell me about heaven, but they all knew every square inch of hell. They built it. My mother. She instilled some serious shame into me under the guise of God. Some things she said. Not allowed to believe in Santa because that takes credit away from God. Santa was actually a hand of Satan trying to corrupt me. Not allowed to believe in the Easter Bunny because it was also a hand of Satan trying to corrupt me away from Jesus. I wasn't allowed to feel pride in my accomplishments because it's a sin. I was a D-head because my dad got me fully vaccinated as a child, and that is against God's plan. Hollywood is operated by Satan, so I wasn't allowed to watch movies or shows, especially Disney. Harry Potter was an absolute no because witchcraft is an affront to God. Scientists should not be trusted under any circumstances. My rare genetic condition was part of God's plan and I'd understand someday. Not allowed to say damn because it's an affront to God, etc. That combined with her regular, not religious abuse has left me struggling a lot with my religiosity. When I was 6 years old, the pastor gave a letter to my aunt to give to my mom saying that we were not donating enough money to the church. So we stopped going, and I have never been to church since. Something like this happened to my friend's grandma. The church wrote her a letter basically saying they knew how much money she was making and that she should be giving more to the church. Her response was, "Screw you guys, I'm moving to Mexico." I was 15. My father had been diagnosed with ALS. I had gone to a youth group thing with a Christian friend of mine, and they had a circle of teenagers going around talking about things going on in their lives and relating it to God. When it was my turn, I shared that my father was dying and I didn't understand why him. I was angry and I said something along the lines of, I doubted there was a God if this was happening. Basically a normal thing to say when you're young and you have a sick relative. I got chewed out for even questioning God, and the rest of the kids refused to talk to me the rest of the night, including my friend. You would think I had killed someone, it was that strong of a reaction. Also, my brother became a huge born-again Christian later on in life and tried to push his beliefs on us hard. We got told we were going to hell, and my then boyfriend, now husband, and I got chewed out for living in sin. Editing this because I didn't expect this comment to get much attention, but thank you everyone for all of the supportive comments. A few things to add because I keep seeing them below and will do my best to try to answer, but youth group happened close to 20 years ago. I was actually brought up Catholic and went to church weekly. I stopped going when my dad got sick and he couldn't go anymore, so that my mom could continue to go. She needed the hour or so break and I wanted some one-on-one time with my dad. We took care of him at home for the majority of his illness. Church also meant more to her than it did to me, but towards the end she stopped going too. I was drawn to youth group because I was curious what Christianity was like, and my friend had painted it as a supportive place. We didn't have youth groups at my church. I also thought questioning God was more or less normal. I wasn't a jerk about it either. I was very introverted and hated confrontation. I just wanted some kind of conversation, and these kids seemed like they were strong in their faith. Looking back, I guess I wished I could find comfort in religion. My brother became born again after my grandmother passed in 2012. The majority of his jerkishness happened over the next 3 to 4 years until he switched to a different church. He mellowed out a bit, and me, my mother and my other brother, finally came to an understanding that if we wanted a relationship we wouldn't discuss his religion. I get the occasional, you should come to my church, but that's nothing compared to what he used to say. I also tolerate it for my mom, because all she has left is us. I'm not going to start arguments or refuse to go to holidays. She's been through enough. I also know that my brother is not a bad person. He just goes 100% into whatever he's currently into, and religion wasn't any different. I'm 34. Female. I don't go to church. I'm not religious. Married a guy who leans towards being an atheist. This all happened a while ago, and again, I really appreciate all the supportive comments and messages. You guys are good humans. Going to a mega church. They received over 1 million in donations every weekend, and spent it on elaborate props and videos rather than helping the community in any meaningful way. If you read the Bible, Jesus trashed a temple for being the base of loan sharks. I think he'd go full domestic terrorist against mega churches. I worked at a restaurant near a church on Sundays. Rudest bunch of people ever. Edit, thank you for the likes and awards. Oh effing god, I used to bus tables at a seafood place all the Catholics like to eat at for lunch on Sundays. Tables of 10 plus not tipping or leaving a $5 tip on the entire bill. Kids throwing food all over the place, melted butter spilled onto tabletops and seats. Effing religious pamphlets left in the bathroom sinks or left on the table in lieu of a cash tip. The absolute effing worst were the ones printed to look like a $20 or $100 bill on the outside. Literally the skeeviest effing dive bar in town has a better customer base than most after church Sunday lunch joints. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments.